Government corruption has never been more prevalent or caused more harm. It's why extremism is on the rise. It's why the financial gap between the haves and have-nots has never been wider. And it's why our planet is at risk of an extinction level tragedy. That's why I need your help to keep exposing the truth about the rot on both sides of the aisle. Become a supporter or a friend of the show today by clicking on the coffee link in the description box below. Friends of the show join me on a Zoom hangout once a month, and you guys can ask me any questions you want, and I can get to know you better. But the most important reason to help is to keep the show alive. Together, we can and will save our country and our planet. Thanks in advance and enjoy the show. Everyone, welcome to the show. So there was some concerning polling data released this week. But first, I want to touch on some good news. A new Washington Post Schar school poll found that 65% of Americans believe that the overturning of abortion rights equate to a loss of women's rights. And 58% of the people who were polled support a federal law to protect abortion rights before fetus viability, which is about 22 weeks gestation. The really good news is that abortion is now ranked as the second most important issue to voters of these people who were polled. The number one issue was still, of course, rising prices. That was at 39%. And then abortion came in at 31%, which was above crime and immigration, which is pretty significant as far as an upward shift from where it was a few years ago when they scored it at only 14%. Now, the really great news is that among independent voters, 59% said that they support a federal law which would enshrine a woman's right to choose into law. Here's the bad news, though. Concern about this issue might not actually translate into votes. The same poll also found that a great number of the people who consider abortion to be a top issue, they're still uncertain about whether or not they're going to vote. It makes no sense, I know, but that's what they told the pollsters. At the same time, this is the really, really bad news. At the same time, the people who don't think that there's a problem with overturning Roe versus Wade, or the people who are happy about it being overturned, they are more likely to vote. They said that Democrats, and particularly younger female Democrats, aren't committed to voting this November. The problem appears to be trust. It appears to be trust and faith in the Democratic Party. When asked which party respondents trusted more to handle the issue of abortion, the majority of people said neither. 35% said Dems, 26% said Republicans, and 39% said neither party. And when these people were asked if they'll be voting in the midterms, 74% of Republicans said, yes, we will absolutely be voting, while only 62% of Democrats said, yes, absolutely. And then 53% of independent voters. Even more frightening is the fact that respondents who believe that abortion should be illegal in all or most instances, that means like rape, incest, anything, they were 11% more likely to vote in the midterms than the people who say women should have a right to choose. That is terrifying. So there's a couple of points I want to make about all of this. First and foremost, I believe this is representative of what happens when you consistently ignore the will of your base versus showing up for the base that shows up for you. Democrats have for years wanted to see Democratic lawmakers fight. They want to see them make things happen. We've been telling them to take the gloves off and to give as good as they're getting. Instead, we get this mamby-pamby attitude. They nibble around the edges. They thank their colleagues on the other side of the aisle. They're hugging them. They play nice. Then on the other side, on the Republican side, you've got brawlers who are willing to do anything to get what their base wants. Republicans are excited to go to the polls because they see what happens when they put Republicans in charge. They get their way. Democrats, and especially younger Democrats, have seen their party leaders, and I say that with air quotes, they've seen these people flip them a middle finger over and over again. Here's a perfect example. Biden could today wipe out student loan debt. He promised to do something about student loan debt when he was a candidate, yet he's done absolutely nothing. So you've got Gen Zers, even millennials, who experience nothing in their lives but government failure and their apathy. You know, they've never lived in a world where school shootings didn't exist. Think about that. They've never been on this earth where weapons of war weren't regularly used to murder people, and especially in school. They watched as Obama, we all did, gave handouts to corporations and to Wall Street during the 2008 recession, while simultaneously he did little to nothing to help average Americans. And so those millennials, those Gen Zers, maybe not the Gen Zers at the time, but the millennials, they watched as their parents lost their homes, lost their businesses. And then they watched as the same greedy Wall Street bastards who got those payouts took golden parachute retirements because the government gave them these bailouts without any stipulations, without any strings attached. They watched as Obama failed to keep his promise about single-payer healthcare, how he failed to codify Roe back then, even though the Democrats held a supermajority for the first 2 years of his presidency. And then they watched as the Democrats meticulously and purposely destroyed Bernie Sanders' candidacy, not just in 2016, but in 2022, all in service of their corporate masters. The DNC literally in 2016 handed Bernie's electoral votes in one state to Hillary. He won every single county in that state, and they gave the votes to Hillary. So, of course, they've come to accept it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what we want. Doesn't matter what we need. The Democratic Party leadership doesn't give a shit. Now, I will say this abortion poll was conducted between July 22nd and the 24th. So that was prior to the announcement of this deal that Dems have supposedly struck with Manchin. We'll see if it comes to pass. You know, but there are some good things in that bill, some very important climate change provisions that would appeal to young voters, especially. I don't know if it's enough to drive voter turnout. And for everyone who says, oh, who cares? You know, young people never show up to vote anyway. Really? Well, they pulled Biden over the finish line in 2020. 2020 voter turnout among voters under 30 was incredible. The vast majority voted for Biden. So hopefully the Democrats are going to wake up. Hopefully they're going to realize that when your voters continue to show up for you, they expect you and demand that you show up for them at some point. And when you repeatedly fail to deliver for them, but you always seem to come through with defense spending and for special interest groups, eventually they're going to check out. So we'll see. We'll see how things shake out now that these new bills are on the way, that Democrats seem to be trying to pull a rabbit out of the hat before the midterms, but we'll see if it's too late. Anyway, guys, I will let you know when I hear more polling information that I think is vital for you to understand. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Take care, and I'll talk with you soon.